In this video, I'm going to be diving deeper into my graphic design process for an official movie poster design, all the way from client call to finished product. So let's get into it. So the client for this project is Jason Wolfmiller, a young director I worked with on a project last year for the Silkscreen Arcadia movie poster. Whenever I start a new project, I almost always hop on a call with the client just to iron out the small details and really get on the same page before we dive into the work. Knowing exactly what the client and you want as your goals is a great starting point, and it leaves room for less bullshit happening down the road. After chopping it up with Jason for a little bit and just kind of catching up, I left with some key takeaways of what he wanted in the poster. I'll talk to you soon. Take it easy. He was looking for something typographic, a single striking image with more of an edited or stylized effect, and a good tight layout. Jason also supplied me with some amazing references of some posters he liked from the past, so it gave me a great starting point to enter my research and concepting phase. I did some research for this project both with physical books from my library and stuff online, and I just gathered things here and there so I could save them for later into more concrete mood boards that we would present to the client. My main resource in the physical world was this small book cataloging a bunch of book covers, this awesome hardcover book I got recently with all these amazing album covers over the last 100 years, and also this protest book that has some good inspiration for flyer and poster design. As for the online space, I just looked at a bunch of old movie posters online and took from some of the references that Jason sent and expanded on those into different branches that we could choose and decide on. An amazing resource for this project, specifically for movie poster design projects, is this film art gallery. It's this place that has a bunch of old movie posters, and technically you're supposed to be there for purchase, but I just use it as inspiration. I was specifically drawn to ones from the 60s and 70s, and also these ones from Poland. Side note, if you want to see some awesome movie posters, go check out this website and the collection of all the Polish movie posters they have. They're just like really dope alternative versions of all these famous movies you would know. Once I had some ideas cooking and a nice pool of reference material, I headed over to Arena to create 3 concrete mood boards that I could share with the client. Alright, so here are the 3 different mood boards that I sent over to Jason. I usually just make these in Arena as private mood boards and then create a short video, kind of like what I'm doing right now, and send over to the client. So this first one is just called typographic, and obviously a big focus on typography, good use of layout and negative space, and something a little different from what you see in modern posters, but we were using a lot of references from vintage posters as well as posters for music events and things like that. The other version was called minimal, and it was just a really use of negative space and just one single subject, something that stood out. Still good use of typography, but a lot more subdued and set to like a lockup. Like this lobster one, you just have the type all set down there, or this Hank Williams design that I made. The third option was framing. This is kind of similar, but more in this like poster design, almost Blue Note style, like this square framed image, not something that is cropped out. And I think when you're working with clients, to make sure you're on the same page from the get-go, it's really good to do a lot of the work like this in the beginning. Focus on the concept, focus on the mood board, and really get on the same page so later down the line, there's not any issues on like, that wasn't what I was looking for, or this and that. At this point, I sent those 3 mood boards over to Jason, and eventually he sent me back his thoughts and seemed to really gravitate towards the first option. This one prioritized strong, bold typography and a singular, strong image. So after hearing Jason's thoughts, I set up some guidelines for the poster to make sure I was staying on track with the initial vision. Those parameters were a good layout, use of negative space, clean typography, and one striking main subject image. Alright, now let's get into the actual workflow. The 2 main subjects in this movie honestly are this main character as well as the purchase of this specific SUV, so I wanted to make sure they were incorporated into the poster, either both of them or one or the other. I was able to pull some good screenshots from the movie itself of the main actor, so I didn't think we'd have to shoot any additional images of him or anything, so we were off to a good start. Initially, I started experimenting with this format of the main actor and his dead mother, who is kind of lurking over his shoulder as a hallucination moral compass type figure in the movie. I thought this idea would work pretty well, especially if it was stylized with either a halftone or a threshold type of effect. After fleshing that out for a little bit, On the next day, I continued trying to figure out this version of the poster and just kept messing around with the hierarchy of the two characters and how they would overlap and blend into each other. At one point, I even created this full bleed kind of version that was really cropped and zoomed in that I think had some potential, so I saved it for later. During these early stages, I tried not to get tied down to any one specific concept and kind of let my ADHD brain just flow all over the place and hop from concept to concept. That way, I don't leave any stone unturned. The purchase of this beat up Chevy SUV is a big focal point in the film, so I also started working on a version that has that main character looking in the side view mirror of this car. Treating this image with a nice grainy black and white effect really helped it pop, and the image itself felt pretty dynamic with the main actor's face in the rearview mirror and the shape of the car going off the edge of the poster. I thought this idea had some pretty good potential, so I started doing some rough typographic layouts for it. Nothing too dialed in lockup wise for the typography, just kind of staying loose and experimenting with the type hierarchy and the color. I was really liking this super saturated red color paired with this dark gray overlaid on black. The entire film is set in black and white, so it felt very appropriate to have this kind of dark shadowy color palette, but also including a pop of color just to help it stand out. I also kept chipping away at this composite version, did some large type layouts on it, so we had a variety of directions to present the client. Ultimately though, I wasn't really messing with this one. I don't know if it was the shape of the characters or the type I was doing, but I decided to work on some other more promising directions. So I wanted to have an option to present to Jason that was a bit different from the rest of them and use the car as a sole focal point. During the concepting phase, Jason and I really liked this dual poster. It had this smashed vehicle and I really thought it'd be cool to do a concept like that with the SUV from the movie. There wasn't any particular shots like this in the movie, so I had to find some stock imagery and make it work. Once I had the image, I experimented with different ways to treat it. I tried a Xerox grain style aesthetic and also this more punk stamp stippling effect. The crashed car felt really good placed at the bottom and using the edge of the poster almost as the area that the car is, smashing into. The image of this car created some nice negative space, so I made this little type lockup using this dope wide and bold sans serif called Sequel, and then also included this little quote up top. I really liked how this direction was turning out, and I thought it would give us a good variety to present to Jason later. Once I got the color palette locked in for that concept, I started working on a third one, and it was an idea I knew would be dope, but I had kind of been putting off because it would take a little bit more work. I had this idea to do this collage weave type of thing with the main actor and his mom and combine them. So at this point, I just needed to create a nice layout to complement this main collage weave hero image. Since the other ideas were mainly focused on a clean kind of type lockup and lots of negative space, for this one, I did a more full page layout and used a symmetrical style for all the different elements. It was also cool to spread out all the stuff that would normally go in just one simple building block at the bottom across the entire poster. Once the type and colors were looking good, I made sure my two center images were lined up and printed them out on separate pieces of paper. So for this main graphic, I printed out the images in a square shape and measured out equal space between them and started cutting strips. At this point, you just cut the strips but don't fully take them out of the container of the paper, and then you get the other image and I cut it horizontally and feed them through the initial piece of paper to create this cool collage woven type effect. I really liked how this effect turned out, and I knew it would fit great inside that container shape for the poster layout we made. Once I scanned it back in, all I really had to do for this concept was create some contrast in the overall poster and the hero image itself. That design was pretty set, so I finished up the other two concepts, and for this car one, changed it to this really bright green to give us some more variety in color when we're presenting to the client. Once I finished up the crashed car version, I went back to our first poster and added some more tense and saturated colors, and also made the typography a lot more bold, and I felt like it just stood out a lot better. Lastly, I printed out each of these designs and added some digital textures as well to give it that feeling that Jason always really likes in his posters. At this point, we had 3 final and different enough posters that we could present to Jason for him to choose from. At this point, I'll show you the presentation that I made for the client. So here's the presentation that I sent over to Jason with the final poster designs. I did this light gray for the background since our final directions were so dark with the black. I wanted it to stand out. I explained the collage weave with the main character and his mom that's dead being intertwined still even in the afterlife, and That was serving as the main hero image, and then also how we achieved our goals by leaning into some big, bold typography. Here was a simple mock-up, nothing too crazy, just to show it in place. This was an alternate version also I haven't showed you guys yet that I pitched to the client. Same exact layout, but I tried a halftone version and I was like, oh, I really like how this looks too. I didn't know if it was going to be one that would get chosen or anything, but I decided to throw it in the ring as well. So for our second option, the crashed car, and we talked about how we really liked that dual inspo, and I wanted to try a version that was a little bit more abstract. And since this type lockup and billing block was set right here, I wanted to add a little bit else in the negative space. So this was a big quote that the mom says to the son in the movie: remember, you are what you do. Simple mock-up. And then the last option is almost a combination of both the first and second use of the car and the main character, and this conflict of, you know, him having to move forward and try to get on with his life and buy this vehicle from someone else who's actually trying to scam him. Kind of feels like he's looking forward, but you're seeing it through the side mirror, so he's still kind of worried about the past. That was the main concept around this one. Once again, simple mock-up. But yeah, those were the three ideas, and I just hit them with the simple thank you. And I think putting your designs in a simple presentation like this really helps the client feel like you're confident in your decisions, as well as just that little extra effort that I think makes clients happy. It took a few days for Jason to respond, but ultimately he really liked the collage weave version. Here's a look at the final product. I was super stoked on how it turned out, and also working with dope clients like Jason is always such a great experience, and I'm really excited to make more movie posters like this in the future. Thank you so much for watching. It was really fun doing a deeper dive into my client design process. If you enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.